Oh, there he is. Disregard. Okay. Welcome to Garden of the Spirit, a class studying apples from the orchard for the second time, beginning after Pesach 2014. This class meets in Longmeadow, Massachusetts, the center of the universe, and is held in memory of Malka Ruth Bas Moshe, Margaret Vogel of blessed memory. Apples from the Orchard contains selections of teachings of Kabbalah from the Arizal, or Beis HaKluria, based on the weekly Torah portion, superbly translated and explained by Rabbi Moshe Wisniewski.
Hello, Chaim.
Hey.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
Okay, welcome all. Page 252. We may have done this. We're going to start from this page. Okay. Last time we learned that during the 130 years that Adam was engaged in teshuvah, repentance, for eating from the tree of knowledge, being death to the world, he separated from Chava and inadvertently had wasted seed, which produced souls, souls that were, I don't know if we described them. Obviously, they had issues, and they were reincarnated during the generation of the flood. And that was, actually, the flood was the year 1656. And they continued in, they engaged also in bad things. Among them was also misdeeds regarding intimacy and possibly wasted seed. They were later reincarnated 300 years later into the time of the Tower of Babel. That's known as the generation of dispersion, the Dor HaFlaga. And they also continued this mess up. And then they were reincarnated. These souls were given to the people who were in Egypt, the Jewish people in Egypt. And they could have continued, or they could work on repairing. So they worked on repairing, and that's the harsh labor that we did. And it says, okay, that these are connected with the level of das. There are three levels of the intellect in humans, of the intellect, and in Atzilus of spheras. These are spheras known as spheres of intellect. Chachma, Bin, and Das. The third one is Das, which translates into knowledge, but which really means to apply the wisdom. And that's where we are today. We're going to start from, this is also, we can go back and start from Now All Souls. We read this, but we just go back there. What did I write before? Das is more than just knowledge. It means to bond with something. So Adam, the Torah says Adam nu Chava. If you've ever heard the expression to know in the biblical sense, Adam nu Chava means that he bonded with her intimately. They had relations, and she conceived. So let's begin. Alan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great.
I hope
Page
so.
252. Now all souls.
Now, all souls come into reality with states of chesed and gevura, which are derived from das. Coupling is a function of das. This being the mystical meaning of the phrase, and Adam knew his wife Chava. Coupling is referred to as knowledge because the seminal drop originates in das.
Okay. Moshe is also known for Das, being that he received the Torah and taught the people 40 years. The people of that time are known as the Dor De'ah, the generation of knowledge, or Das, De'ah, Das, because they were free from earning a livelihood. They had all their physical needs provided by Hashem, and they spent their time engaged in the study of Torah. What you read in the Torah, that they complained that they didn't have what to eat, and they complained about this, they complained about that, those were the anomalies. For all practical purposes, they were engaged in studying Torah. They didn't have to plow, they didn't have to plant, they didn't have to harvest, they didn't have to do all the other stuff. So they spent their time engaged in study of Torah. They are known as the Dor De'ah, the generation of knowledge. However, it says they were not completely free of klipa. Go ahead, Alan.
This is also true of Moshe's generation, as is known, for Moshe personified Das, and thus his generation was a generation of Das, as we have explained elsewhere. However, they were drawn to evil. This is evident from the fact that they suffered the oppression of the Egyptian exile and slavery. Some deficiency of theirs caused a blockage in the flow of divine beneficence to them.
Okay, thank you. The physical labor they endured as slaves was to purify their souls from the misdeeds of Adam, and the sins of the people of the flood and the Tower of Babel. The people who built the tower said, "Let us fashion bricks and burn them in fire." And the Torah says the bricks serve them as stone and the lime served them as mortar. In Egypt, the Egyptians made their lives bitter with hard labor in mortar and bricks. So so we see a commonality between the Tower of Babel and the slavery in Egypt. The hard labor in Egypt helped purge them of the klippas from the Tower of Babel. Go ahead, Alan.
Thus, the whole purpose of the Egyptian exile was to purify these souls. This is why they were subjected to such oppression, and the Egyptians made their lives bitter with hard labor in mortar and bricks, corresponding to the mortar and bricks the generation of the dispersion used to build the Tower of Babel. Understand this. Of the generation of the dispersion, it is written, they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them hard." They had bricks for stone and bitumen for mortar. Thus, the Jews suffering through mortar and bricks atoned for their sins with mortar and bricks in their previous incarnation.
Thank you. The sin of the Tower of Babel was connected to Das. The exile in Egypt was connected to Das. And the hard labor of the Israelites was connected to Das. So the exile was a consequence of the Tower of Babel, and the hard labor was to purify them of the klipos. These three are related, and I don't think it explains why, or anything more about why the Tower of Babel was connected with Das, unless it's just based on what it said until now. The Tower of Babel, they were intelligent people. Exactly what was the purpose of the tower? The purpose of the tower perhaps was to rise above the flood. They had scientists of the time determined that a flood would be a regular occurrence. And the way to protect themselves would be to build a tower that would be higher than the flood. Maybe it was because they felt it was due to global warming. Tower doesn't mean that it had to be 10 feet by 10 feet. It could have been much wider, something that would hold many people. So there were other things involved. It was the purpose of the tower was to challenge Hashem. But so it could be there's das, it could be there's some science involved as well. Okay, let's see what we have next. Every sin. I have two totally separate webinars coming up at 9 o'clock. Okay. See if I was what's the word? If I was schizophrenic, I could watch both at the same time.
Split
Okay, every
personality.
sin causes a defect in the spheres of Atzilus. Okay, so when we do mitzvahs, we cause an influx of divine energy into creation, especially into Atzilus. When we, God forbid, if we violate a mitzvah or commit a prohibition, then we cause a defect in Atzilus, and instead of, and there's like a gaping hole, and the divine energy escapes, and there's a fumble, and the ball is picked up by Klippa, or it's intercepted by Klippa. So we cause damage through sins. We cause damage in Atzilus, in the spheres. Klippa is able, so every sin causes a defect in the spheres of Atzilus. Klippa is able to divert divine energy and gain a foothold in the spheres, or a specific sphera. In this case, it was in Das. Okay, Jim, continue. 253, now since.
Now, since their sin was only with respect to Das, for the sparks of their souls originated therein, Moses therefore knew that their exile was also derived from there. For as mentioned above, and as the Arizal will presently state, it is possible to understand the nature of this blemish being produced by examining the effect it produces. The fact that the Jews were being punished with mortar and bricks indicated that they were atoning for the sin of the generation of dispersion who sinned with mortar and bricks. The generation had sinned by blemishing the covenant, which is a function of Das, which is the sephira of coupling.
Okay, we had said that before. That they created defects or damaged the covenant, which is the sins committed with the bris milah, and that is connected with Das. Okay, I should point out in other places in Medrash or Zohar, it says that Egyptians made the work hard with mortar and bricks, or lime and bricks, and the word for mortar is chomer. Chomer is but chomer also is a method to analyze the Torah called kal v'chomer. When we compare two situations, and if there's halacha, if a certain law applies in one situation, then for sure it should apply in another situation, which would be more closer to that law. That's kal v'chomer. And levanim, the bricks, is also similar to the word libun hilchasa. Libun hilchasa means to clarify the halacha. So it says that they worked hard with mortar and bricks, also means that they were also in toiling in studying Torah and analyzing the Torah to learn different laws, much as we do today. Okay, what do we got here? Okay, Jim, go ahead to explain.
To explain, whenever the Jewish people sin here below and thereby cause some flaw in some divine attribute or supernal sphera, God forbid, evil is able to derive sustenance from this blemish and therefore attaches itself to that point. We may envision evil as a disease that attacks a weakened immune system.
Egypt and the Egyptian exile is a klipa of das. The letters of the word paro can be arranged to read ha'oref, the back of the neck, which is the backside of das. Go ahead.
This is the secret to understand the Egyptian exile. For Egypt and the impurity it embodied derives sustenance from das. This is particularly so in light of what I've taught you, namely, that Pharaoh and Egypt are positioned in opposition to the supernal neck, which is the back of the supernal das. This should suffice. Das is manifested in the body of the cerebellum, which is located underneath at the back of the brain near the neck. The word for Pharaoh, as we noted, permeates to spell the word for neck, ha'oref.
They're basically, I guess, three sections of the brain that we often talk about. There is the brain stem or the limbic system, and I think it might also be called the reptilian brain. It's like it controls our natural impulses, our instincts. They always talk about whether to stand and fight or to turn and run. But it seems that it controls our much of our natural instincts, bodily functions. Above that is the cerebellum, and then our highest, I think the ability to reason and logic and so on is in the cerebrum. So I just looked that up today to double check. I did also learn about this in education classes, something called brain-based learning. Have you heard about? Okay. It's nice to see some type of correlation. Okay, 18. So Paro in Egypt succeeded in sucking divine energy from Das and gave the Egyptians power to enslave the Israelites. Okay, they intercepted the ball. As a result, divine energy severely restricted his flow to avoid providing nourishment to Klippa. And here we take a little bit of a turn, the off-ramp. This is the same idea why the sixth Sefirot of Zerampin first repair, and only afterward become a full parts of 10 spheres. I'm not sure what this means. I haven't come across in other places. But it says that they first do the repair that they need to do to repair the damage in Atzilus. Then they can develop into a full parts of I guess is a profile of Atzilus that's joined with all 10 spheres, with the 3 of the intellect. But it's going to explain a little bit more in number 19. But it seems that this is the reason or it's the same idea as a baby being born with emotions. And as it grows up, it grows in emotions and also develops the power to reason. So the 6 spheres of Zerampin, of course, are the spheres of emotion. And it seems that they keep intellect stays out of the picture. And again, possibly to restrict the flow of divine energy to Klipa. Okay, Jim, continue.
Clearly, this exile resulted from all the divine beneficence that flows through Das being siphoned off to Pharaoh and to Egypt. Therefore, the Jews of that generation were subject to Pharaoh and Egypt. But as you already know, when there is a flaw due to the sins of the generation below, the divine energies depart, ascending back to their source in order that the powers of evil do not derive too much sustenance from them. So when divine beneficence is diverted from natural flow, this trips a switch of spiritual mechanism of creation that shuts off the valve of divine beneficence.
Okay. As we said, and then the next part explains it better. As we said, when Klipa intercepts divine energy retracts into a fetal position to prevent as much as possible Klipa from receiving nourishment. I should switch those phrases around. We know that there are three sets or triads of spheros. There's the intellect, Chachma, Bina, and Das, the upper emotions, Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, and the lower emotions, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. The triad of intellect folds into the triad of the upper emotions, which fold into the triad of the lower emotions, which fold. Oops. Okay, this is similar to the fetal position where the body is scrunched together inside the womb, the head tucked into the chest, and the legs brought up against the torso. At this stage, there is no intellect and no upper emotions, just the limbic system maintaining bodily functions. This is a metaphor for how divine energy maintains the world during a time of exile, as it is what happened in the Egyptian exile. Okay, Gershon, are you ready?
Yes.
254.
I have explained this to you with regard to why Zer Anpin is at first only 6 extremities and thus not become 10 full sephiros, that means a partsuf, until after the rectification process. Similarly, at the time, that means of the Egyptian exile, Zer Anpin reverted to its original state, that of 3 folded within 3. We always refer to this state as the first impregnation. It returned to the womb of Ima and was not revealed outside. Rabbi Meir Poppers insists that the statement that Zer Anpin returned to the womb of Ima must not be taken literally. Rather, Zer Anpin remained a full, mature partsuf, but was informed only by the same level of mentality it possessed when it was in utero. The mentality is called in the Zohar 3-folded within 3. That means Chokhmah Bina Das concealed within Chesed Gevura Tiferes and functioning of the body. And Chesed Gevura Tiferes concealed within. Okay, I screwed up. Let's try again. Chokhmah Bina Das concealed within Chesed Gevura Tiferes and Chesed Gevura Tiferes concealed within Netzach Hod Yesod. The later triplet represents the autonomous functioning of the body, which is essentially what is functioning during pregnancy. Physically, this is reflected in the fact that the embryo is postured in a crouched fetal position, its head bent into the knees. This is also why Pesach sacrifice was to be offered with its head on its knees and on its innards. Thus, we see that transgression in the world causes a blemish in the upper worlds, which backlashes as a withdrawal of divine energy and beneficence in order to prevent evil from taking the opportunity to siphon off this energy for itself. This exile of divine presence is an immature mentality that must be reconstructed and rematured in order to restore the optimal consciousness. This is the process of redemption.
He didn't say how it's reconstructed or rematured.
No.
That's
has
what we.
to.
That's the repair that we do.
Tikkun
Correct.
Olam, who knows?
Or whatever we do to bring the divine presence back is a form of repair. So your mitzvahs do it, your learning does it, your mission does it, and your purpose. And that's how we bring divine presence. There's not much else.
Okay, thank you. Any other feedback, thoughts, questions, answers, arguments, counter arguments?
Must be digested.
Well, if mitzvahs, if breaking the law breaks holes, basically thinking of it that way, and in Atzilus, and mitzvahs strengthen it, then the obvious, right? Mitzvahs fix it.
Oh, it's like shoots and ladder. You know, you go down and then you go back up. You
I
make
think of
it-
a swimming pool where the liner is broken. You have a leak,
Yeah.
I see.
and the repair is, $800 or $1,500.
And you fill
That's
it more with
interesting.
water, and then another hole comes up. And
Somebody who knows a whole lot more Hasidus than me just this morning said it's plumbing. That there's no feeling in any of this. It's plumbing.
There's got to
Over
be
here,
feeling.
we say it's football.
Yeah.
Yes, Jim.
No, there's got to be feeling. I mean, it's like prayer has to have. It has to have the intention and the kavana. It has to have feeling, and so should mitzvah too. It just gets bigger and broader with the feeling and the consciousness.
That's a good point.
Thank you. I learned a few months ago about the damage. I don't remember all the details, but it says that in order to repair, there is all the divine energy that's been lost that has to be reclaimed, but also the divine energy, the sphera is missing the divine energy. So we have to, I guess, for one thing, take divine energy away from the klipa. And the second thing is we have to add back more divine energy into the spheres.
Mhm.
Because the spheres were deprived of the godliness. So now we have to bring that in as well. So there are different aspects to this.
Mhm.
Okay. We ready to go on? Chapter 2?
Sure.
Okay. I was only able to prepare some of it, but I think we should be able to make our way through it. Okay. One moment. What was the title of that chapter? What was the pasuk that it was based on?
Which
Exodus.
These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt, and it was just about the exile in general.
Yeah.
So it looks like beginning of Shmot, 1:1.
Yeah, 1:1.
Bricks and mortar. Bricks and mortar.
The previous one.
The pasuk is the names of the Jewish. Is just
The
the
names
beginning.
of the sons. Yeah.
The first one, yeah.
Right.
Second one, birth of the soul, same pasuk.
Yeah.
These, I'm sorry. One, there are 4 methods for understanding the Torah. Pshat is the regular meaning, face value. Drush means to expound. And in the professional scholars refer to it as hermeneutics. Right. Or eugenetics or something. There's a U, there's a E. I don't even know how to pronounce it. But it means that you expound. You take things out of their context. Very often it means to take things out of context. Remez, allusion, or hints. And sod, secrets of creation. And this is the wrong order.
Mhm.
Okay, there you go. The four together, Pshat starts with P, Remez starts with Resh, Drush starts with Dalid, and Sod starts with Samach. Put them together and it spells Pardes. Pardes is an orchard. Sure, many of you probably know this already. A
Mhm.
Pardes is an orchard. So the name of the book is Apples of the Orchard.
Mhm.
So studying Torah is like taking a stroll or constitutional through a pleasant odorous orchard. And I don't know if there's a relation, but Pardes is very close to the word paradise. I can look up afterwards, see if it's related. Most of what we learn in this class is Sod, secrets of creation. That is the Arizal. But this chapter will focus on Remez, allusion, and it will understand the parsha as a description of the soul that is born in this world. 2. The birth of the Jewish nation occurred at Mount Sinai when we received the Torah. The exile in Egypt and the slavery are similar to an embryo in its mother's womb, because the Hebrew word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, means confinement or restriction in English.
Mhm.
The soul leaves heaven and enters this world with all its physical confinements and restrictions. And I thought I've never been to Egypt. Okay. So Gershon, please begin. Birth of the soul.
Birth of the soul. These are the names of the sons of Israel coming to Egypt with Jacob. Each man and his household came. Inasmuch as there are 70 facets to the Torah, and one of these is verbal allusion, remes, we will expound this verse in this manner. The descent of the Israelites into Egypt alludes to the embryo while still in its mother's womb, in between those straits. The word for Egypt, Mitzrayim, means straits or confinements. It is therefore an allegory for the confinement of the soul as it leaves its native milieu in heaven and descends into the confinements of physicality, constrained to experience reality within the parameters of time and space. The phrase "in between the straits" is paraphrased from Lamentations 1:3.
Bein hamitzarim, between the straits.
Mhm.
Okay, and it's close to the word Mitzrayim. Lamentations obviously is what we do on Tisha B'Av. Okay, the body is a reflection of the soul. When it says, so if the body, in halacha, the body has 248 limbs and 365 giddim. The 248 limbs are actually listed in the Mishnayos called Ahalos. I think it's the first chapter. The 248 limbs that are mentioned there do not correlate to how we categorize limbs today in science or in medicine. Just saying, but they do enumerate them there. So like there's things that science today may count as 2 limbs or 3 limbs. The Mishnah may count it as 1, and vice versa. There are things that the Mishnah may count as 2 or 3, and science today counts them as 1 or does not consider them a limb. There are 365 sinews of the soul. The Hebrew word for sinews is giddim. What are giddim? It's not clear. I did see once in the art scroll, possibly the Gemara, that they do not translate giddim. They just write the Hebrew word giddim in italics. So sometimes you'll see them as sinews, sometimes as tendons. I don't know if they mean muscles. Whatever it is, it certainly is not. There's nothing in the body today that we can say, okay, these are giddim, and we categorize the same way, or classify. They would be classified the same way in science today as they are referred to in the Medrash and in the Talmud. There, as far as I know, there's no place that they're actually listed. We do have in the Torah the Gid Hanosha is the sciatic nerve that Esav dislocated, belonging to Yaakov. It's called the Gid Hanosha. Is that the sciatic nerve? Someone just pointed out to me a few weeks ago that that would be the sciatic nerve. But exactly what it is it a muscle over there? It's not clear. There's probably no definitive thing. In any case, so the body has 248 limbs and 365 sinews or giddim, and so too the soul also has that, because the body is a reflection of the soul. So if they exist in the body, they must also exist. Something like that must also exist in the soul. The Torah says these are the names of the sons of Israel, means these are all the extensions, just like the children were the extensions of Yaakov. These are the extensions of the soul. Okay, Gershon, go ahead.
With this association, we can interpret the phrase, and these are the names of the sons of Israel, as referring to the faculties of the soul. For just as the body possesses 248 limbs and 365 sinews, so does the soul, these being the faculties of the soul who came to Egypt. If we take Israel to refer the soul itself, the sons of Israel are the extensions of the soul, its intellectual and emotional faculties. The soul, or at least that part of it that is invested in the body, is conceived as being tailored perfectly to the body. Actually, since the soul comes first, the opposite is the case. The body is constructed so as to clothe the soul perfectly.
Okay, but for our perception, we see the body. So from there, we can understand the soul. By the way, I did look up a few weeks ago. We must have had this in our class. And I looked up the sinews, and I looked up tendons, and I looked up muscles. And I guess the tendon attaches the muscle to the bone. But I don't remember what the sinews were, or maybe parts of the muscle.
It's the connective tissue kind of surrounds the muscle, so you can transmit force through the connective tissue to the muscle fibers. Don't ask me, I'm just a chemist. But I just read that.
What?
I just the thin white part, that's connective tissue. That could be the sinew. The tendon is what, like as you said, connects the bone to the muscle.
Yeah, so it didn't. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thicker. It's all collagen, correct? And it's one is thicker than the other. That's the only difference.
All right. I'll take your word.
Well, I'm reading a book about how to help my knees, so I haven't got to exactly how, but that's what they're talking about.
Okay, I like that. So then the Torah says, so now we're going to go through the psukim here and select words and phrases and interpret them in remez, as an allusion to the soul coming into the world. The Torah says with Yaakov, and that means that the soul enters the child when it is yet in its mother's womb, with the Yetzer Hatov. Yaakov refers to the urge for good. Avigail, you could continue. 255 with Jacob.
With Jacob refers to the fact that they enter the child when it is still inside the mother's womb. With Jacob, who is the good inclination, the Yetzer Hatov. Actually, it is explained elsewhere that the child is born only with the evil inclination, and the good inclination enters only beginning at the circumcision or at birth in the case of a girl, and fully at the bar or bat mitzvah. But the divine soul, together with the good inclination, is indeed present at birth, but only becomes manifest gradually as the child is educated in the ways of Torah, culminating at the bar or bat mitzvah.
Okay. Next words in the pasuk are who are coming to Egypt. It doesn't say who arrived in Egypt, but who are arriving in Egypt in the present tense. Go ahead, and we're going to explain that term. Abigail, continue.
The verse continues, coming rather than who came in the past tense, because God forms the spirit of man within him, as is explained in the Zohar, meaning that the more a person continues to mature spiritually, the more his soul enters and manifests within him.
So that means that it's ongoing. The neshama continues to be apparent, to show itself, to grow within the person. So I think the next paragraph explains that that the neshama enters and continues to grow, even though it enters in right away, but the neshama is not essential to the person, not intrinsic to the person. And here we have a verse from the beginning of the book of Shmuel, after Hannah gives birth to her son, the prophet Shmuel, and she sings a song of praise. And in there she says, Ein kadosh kashem, there is none as holy as Hashem. Ve'ein sur kilokenu, and there is no rock like our God. Okay, go ahead, Hannah. Abigail, Hannah.
It is thus stated there is none holy as God, meaning that even though Israel are holy, they are not intrinsically holy. Rather, God sanctifies them. This is the meaning of the continuation of the verse, for there is none other than you, meaning his holiness is not derived from others, but is intrinsic, while Israel's holiness is not intrinsic, but rather derived from none other than him. This verse continues, and there is no rock like our God. Our sages interpreted this to mean there is no artist like our God. The word for rock.
Can you hold on? Yeah, read that line and please wait for me. Do the next line.
This verse continues, and there is no rock like our God. Our sages interpreted this to mean there is no artist like our God. The word for rock, tsur, is cognate to the word for artist, tatsiar.
The word for rock is tsur. The word for artist is sayar. So we say that Hashem is a brilliant artist. I think I forgot to look it up before. I actually have learned it.
Let's see.
I think it is. A person can draw a figure on a canvas or on the wall it says, but he is not able to give it a life and a soul. He can't give it the insides, digestive system. But Hashem can form a figure, inside a figure, he can give it life, a soul, and the inside organs. I guess they usually those are things referred to the digestive system. Okay, so that's why Hashem is an amazing artist.
So the word for artist is dayar.
Sayar, the tzaddik.
Oh, sayar. Okay.
Okay. And so this is all in the Song of Devorah. We again we took a diversion here, took an exit. We stopped talking about the beginning of Shmos. Now we're talking about Devorah, Hannah's song, when after Shmuel was born. Oh, he says it right here. Okay, go ahead, Abigail, for someone.
For someone who draws a picture of a person on paper cannot at the same time draw internal organs such as the stomach, intestines, heart, liver, or spleen, while God does not only this, but also draws the form of another person inside the abdominal cavity, i.e. the embryo inside its mother's womb. And inside the embryo are more internal organs as well as its spirit.
Okay, now we're going to quote a verse from, did we have it already?
Forms the spirit of man.
From Zachar.
There's no footnote.
I think the verse was from Zechariah. Yes.
Yeah, 19.
Yeah.
Page 255, note 19.
Forms the spirit of man within him.
Mhm.
Okay, from the book of Zechariah, with also in the present tense. Go ahead, Abigail.
This is the meaning of the verse. He forms the spirit of man within him, implying that the more the embryo develops and grows, the more the soul enters it. Our verse therefore says, coming into Egypt, in the present, indicating an ongoing process of entering, for the soul's faculties enter little by little.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to go back to the verse in Shemos. And it says, these are the names of the people who arrived in Egypt with Yaakov. Each man and his household arrived. What does that mean, each man? Each man and his house, or each man and his household? That's the body that is the house that houses the soul. Go ahead, Abigail.
Afterwards, at birth, when the embryo has become a person, i.e. a fully developed body, the Torah can refer to each man and his house, referring to the body which has become a house for the soul. The next word.
And then its fakeness is off. They came is the last word of the pasuk. Go ahead.
The next word came indicates that at birth, all the soul's faculties fully enter the body.
Okay, go ahead. One more line.
After listing the sons of Jacob and describing how they all died off, the Torah continues.
Before we do that, so at the bottom of 255, we said, as the person continues to mature spiritually, the soul enters and manifests more. Here he says that it says they came, meaning that by the time the baby is born, all the soul's faculties fully enter the body. I don't understand the distinction between those two, but whatever. Okay, the next thing, a few psukim later, it says, one moment. Oh, it says that the Jewish people were fruitful and were multiplied like insects and increased and became very powerful. And then it says a new king rose over Egypt. Okay, now we have a line from Koheles about an old and foolish king. This refers to the Yetzer Hara.
Yeah, this is cool stuff.
Yes, go ahead. It explains the words like this. Oh, Okay, we'll continue. We'll watch the clock.
And a new king arose over Egypt. This refers to the evil inclination, who is the old and foolish king. The verse from Ecclesiastes reads, "A poor and wise child is better than an old and foolish king." The Midrash expounds, "The poor and wise child is the good inclination. Why is it called a child? Because it only pairs up with a person from the age of 13 on. And why is it called poor? Because not everyone listens to it. And why is it called wise? Because it teaches people the upright path in life. The old and foolish king is the evil inclination. Why is it called a king? Because everyone listens to it. And why is it called old? Because it pairs up with the person from birth until his old age. And why is it called foolish? Because it teaches a person the evil path until he no longer knows how to be careful, and he doesn't know how much pain and suffering come upon him for following it. Thus, relative to an individual's experience of them, the good inclination is younger than the evil inclination.
Stripped from the headlines.
Chaim's rule of life number 1. First rule of life. Life doesn't change. Is that what you meant, Rudy?
Murphy.
No, I meant stripped from the headlines.
A bit about evil, about foolish. Everyone
Whatever.
listens to the evil inclination. Do you want to elaborate which headlines or
No,
what we learned? No. Okay. Okay. What I understood is that you see, life doesn't change. That people still act foolishly today. Crazy things going on. I was reading. If you'll permit me, today there was an article. This former police officer is on trial in, I forgot where, Minnesota. The one who yelled "taser, taser," and she claims she accidentally pulled her gun instead of the taser and shot the young man who was, I guess, escaping from the police. Well, I read an article. They were talking to the victims. The victims were saying karma. You know, this victim of the policewoman experienced karma because he tried to kill me. He held a gun to my head. He tried to rob me, and you're wondering, like, and they were saying how these people grow up. How people grow up. He grew up in the life of crime, and that's what we're reading here. I was talking with my son today. Forgot exactly what, but we got on the topic of people who he was listening, I think, to a podcast on Enron, and people were wiped out when Enron went down. People were wiped out. They have their whole life savings or their whole pensions in one basket, and absolutely no diversification. And who would think that Enron would go down? But it did, and this happens. Not every company is perceived to be as stable and strong as a place like something like Enron. But when it went down, it destroyed people. People lost everything. So the idea was, what we were talking about was how people don't act wisely, for example, in financial things, and they we're talking like, what do? Do you have government agencies to protect them? What is it, the SEC, or do you have government agencies? Do you have what do you call it? Like trade organizations that protect them, like or outside, like Consumer Reports, for example, Good Housekeeping type things, or Consumer Reports, or like Yeshiva. We belong to New England Association of Schools and Colleges, which Rudy spearheaded and got us on the right path. I think it was back 1995 or 96 when we started. And And that's a peer, it's a peer group. So anyways, so it's the same. You see that life doesn't change. That's my editorial comments. Okay, so next the Torah says the new king arose. This is the evil inclination over Egypt. If anyone wants to chime in.
I think we could stop.
So a new
Let's-
king, is that like the good inclination?
The new king is the evil inclination.
I thought the old foolish king is the evil.
Yeah, but he's the king over Egypt.
Yeah.
Good point. This is referring to the king of Egypt, to the evil inclination. Let's do 2 more lines. The
Over
new king
Egypt?
Yeah, over Egypt, and the next one after that.
Over Egypt means when the person, is it my turn?
Yes,
Okay.
So,
Over Egypt
you're on a
means
roll.
when the person is in the womb. We thus see me and Murphy over here trying to get out so he can exert his dominance over new territory. He's expanding his empire. He'll shut up at some point. So
Wow,
over Egypt
ouch.
means, no, when he calls me mom.
That's not your cat.
That's my
Yeah.
cat.
Of course it
It
is.
is your cat.
That's my cat. Over Egypt means when the person is in the womb. We thus see that the Arizal teaches that the good inclination actually precedes the evil inclination in utero. The evil inclination, even in utero, is called a new king who arose over Egypt, i.e., who usurped the rulership over the embryo from the good inclination, so that at birth it is the sole conscious source of motivation. Got it. Who did not know Yosef? This refers to the Holy One, blessed be he. The evil inclination is conscious only of the reality of this world. And he said,
Okay. So we'll stop there. Alan, please mark it.
it's marked.
Okay. Yeah, we could pick up there.
Okay, have a good week.
reign over
Okay.
the embryo. That seems so awful.
All right, good. Yep. Okay,
Okay.
lots to think about. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Take
Good
care.
night.
Bye-bye.